If you are skillful, you're practicing your scripts and dialogues, and you know exactly what to say, with a nuance now of knowing the facts around this lawsuit, you're going to thrive. And there's no better opportunity right now. It's going to weed out a lot of the weaker agents, and I also think that it's going to expose who's wearing pants, because like the water goes out, or whatever, shorts, whatever. So I think it's going to be good.
Welcome to episode 7 of Mike Drop. Today I'm here with the one and only Dean Clark. Dean, how are you?
Doing fantastic. Thank you for having me, man.
Oh, no, it's nice to have you. So tell me, what is going on with Dean Clark in 2024?
Oh man, so much. I mean, we've it's great. I mean, this whole commission settlement to me has provided such an opportunity for agents that are skilled. I mean, I had an agent, to give you as a perfect example, on my team, and she's about to do her first deal, and she's been with me for about a few months only, and her first deal in real estate. She's a fresh agent, dude, 24 years old. Okay, check this out. She says to me, Dean, I don't know how to handle. This agent said they are going to sign an exclusive EBA agreement with this other agent to make an offer on this house now, because we have to get these agreements now signed, right? And she's like, I don't know what to do. I just kind of backed down. I didn't know what else to say. I said, say this. I sent her a voice note of exactly what to say, and she turned around. Within one question, she's now going to get paid $6,000 to $7,000 on this sale net to her.
Yeah.
And so I look at this is such a 2024. This chaos is great for us. You know what I mean? For agents like ourselves and others that are listening to this right now, if you are skillful, you're practicing your scripts and dialogues, and you know exactly what to say, with a nuance now of knowing the facts around this lawsuit, you're going to thrive. And there's no better opportunity right now to, I think, it's going to weed out a lot of the weaker agents. And I also think that it's going to expose a lot of the people, like, Warren Buffett had that saying that, when you actually have when the market goes down or it kind of gets disrupted a little bit, who's wearing pants, because like the water goes out, or whatever, shorts, whatever. So I think it's going to be good. I think it's good. It's been a great year based around that, just that alone.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing it 24 years. I don't think there's ever been a greater opportunity. I kind of look at this as like the gold rush, where if you have skills, dialogues, and you know how to explain value, I don't think there's ever been a better time to be a real estate agent. I see so many people wanting to get out, and the truth is that people should be getting in, because there literally is more opportunity. But again, I think it comes down to the people that have skills, and I think that's the challenge you have, is that if you look at just real estate in general, there's not a good training platform. I mean, most companies have agents selling 2 or 3 homes, mentoring people on how to sell. And the challenge is, if you don't know how to sell in high volume, how do you train other people to do it?
So let me give you another example, if I may. Okay.
Please.
I hired a new ISA on my team. So for those that don't know, inside sales agent, they are basically a cold caller for me to provide opportunities to the team and the company. And he's getting his average contact rate per hour and lead acquisition is 10 to 1. He's getting 10 contacts an hour since he started. He's never done this before. He was a golf pro, and now he's getting 10 contacts an hour with one. And there's something to be said about the athlete mindset, but
Right.
10 contacts an hour, and then one lead for me an hour that at least is open to a conversation. And I have to say 2 things about that. Number one is, I am willing to have the conversation around the commission settlement. I think being open to that and understanding that you have to be the resource for that. Your whole database should call you and ask you, well, what do you think about this? Well, how is this going to change things, right? And number 2 is, the way that I look at that is, it's so funny. He told me this great story, right? He walks into another old school office, okay, that was local to our area, and he's like, this prospecting thing, I want to know if this is like a normal thing. He was like, because it seems pretty normal to me, because I'm just used to it, because I don't know any better. He
Right.
walks into another office, he pretends to go for another interview for a job, and he's like, hey, what do you guys think about prospecting for business? Like, is that something you guys do? And dude, he's like, oh my God. He's like, they laughed at me and they said, oh, we don't do that here. We don't want to do that. That's not what we're doing here. We do farming. We do, open houses. And I'm like, and he's like, damn, Dean. He's like, I don't know what we're working on here, what we got going on. But, when you are, exposed to the right things and the right fundamentals, I mean, the sky's the limit in my opinion. So that experience was pretty cool, but yeah.
Absolutely. So how many people do you have on your team right now?
So I have one ISA, one assistant, one junior assistant, and I have 3 agents that are primarily selling. We do a lot of rental business as well. So one really focuses on the rental side, and then 2 real sales agents that are out there doing their thing. They're averaging about a deal or 2 a month, but they're relatively newer to the space. And you got to remember too, like this is all new. I mean, I really started this team really only a year and a half, 2 years ago. This isn't like I've had a team for 10 years. I mean, I never really wanted to do a team. I just knew the only way I can my whole mantra, Mike, has always been how do I provide better service and more quality service to the public that I know I know like and want to serve. And
Absolutely.
the only way I could get more exposure to those people, because I'm not a billboard guy. I don't have a big marketing budget. I'm not spending $100,000 a month on Zillow or whatever. So I said, how else can I do that? I got to have the right people to, start selling also with using my name to get out there and provide and really show this. So we're more like a Navy SEAL team where we should be doing about, really, I mean, just like with you, your team is very similar in that way. But the way I look at it is, the numbers really are attributed to, how like it all starts with a leader, right? And for you, you're a leader, I'm a leader, and the only way we can lead our people to, and I really pride myself on having longevity. I've had my assistant now for 7 years. Actually in 2 weeks it'll be her 7-year anniversary with me in the company.
Wow.
And she really does all our onboarding with the new agents that want to come into our organization because I'm with EXP, so it's the whole thing is where, and she takes care of all of that, but also facilitates the deals and listing coordination. So, it's been good. I mean, I'm excited to see how this is all going to play out.
Well, tell me something. I mean, because a lot of people ask me, Mike, do I go single agent team? What was the transition like from you going from a solo agent to starting scaling out the team? What are the challenges that you had? What's that process been like? 'Cause people wanna know.
So I'll just tell you the history really quick, so you guys, everyone here can understand what actually who I am and like what the context is of who you're listening to. Okay, so I was scared shitless to start a team. I was scared shitless to even be solo. I was on a team as a buyer's agent. I was a buyer's agent. I closed at my height as a buyer's agent, Mike. I closed 47 just Zillow leads in 2016 before I went solo. And that's not including like all the other, so I did that year about 75 deals. That was like my peak being on a team, but I wasn't making any money, right? So I'm doing all this work. I just wasn't, back then it wasn't really, there was no one knew how to like structure the splits and everything. So it was a different thing. But I was on a team for the first 7 years of my career. I've only been on my own for 7 years, and only 2 years ago I ended up starting the team. But I knew I had to get a foundation. I knew I had to get a skill building foundation, that and also mindset, and so that's when like a lot of us like we obviously met, and we might have met at the Mike Ferry organization prior to that, where he spawned off. I mean, you name it, like the whole industry of coaching now. But basically, that's been my trajectory, right? I mean, it was first 7 years on a team, and frankly, the first 3 years of my career, I'll be honest, I'm just going to say it right now publicly, I was dogging it. I mean, I was not, I didn't care. And you got to remember, 14 years ago, Mike, when you've been in the business longer than I have, 14 years ago, it was not cool to be a real estate agent. Let's be honest. It was like you're a soccer mom, or you're just like, it's a part-time thing. It's not a full-time gig. And I'm in New Jersey, right across from New York City, right? So finance is where you wanted to be at. A stockbroker, trader, private equity. That's the shit that you wanted to do. This is like, you know what I mean? It was just weird. So anyway, yeah.
So tell me something. What was it like going from a team and then going on your own? I mean, was that a difficult transition?
That was it was a mental, let's put it this way. I know it's hard to make transitions with a lot of people, right? And that's why it's a good question to ask. I think the biggest thing going from a team to being a solo agent and not having any support, just on your home, you have to have what I call chutzpah. It's like a, kind of like a Jewish slang word, let's say, of saying you got to have this really self-belief and confidence in yourself that, number one, you're in it for the long haul. Okay. It's not going to happen overnight. Don't think within 1 year you're going to just blow up and do 100 deals on your own and it's going to be magical. Unless, of course, unless you're a new construction agent, you get like 100, whatever. But the point is that I was a resale agent, right? That's what we are. So as far as I'm concerned, it was scary as hell. It was really, I remember that conversation like it was yesterday. In December of 2016, I met with my team leader back then and I said, I just think I need to change. I'm ready to go off on my own. And instead of what you and I would do and say, you know what, I'll support you 100%. I am so happy you've been with me for 7 years. Here's the keys to the kingdom, and let's try to see if we can still collaborate or whatever. He said, F you. I don't like you're an idiot. You're stupid for doing this. Because I was doing all the work, right?
Yeah.
I was the one agent producing at outsized return, right? You know what I mean? So I said, okay. And by the way, so it was scary because he filled my head. And so that's where I learned leadership in terms of this is what not to do, right? This is how not to be. You don't want to scare people into making decisions. My philosophy is educate the shit out of people, provide them with the options that are going to benefit obviously all the options, and then you kind of nudge them in the direction that based on the answers to their questions, they know they need that is the best fit for them. That's going to serve them at the highest level. And that wasn't my experience before, so it was really scary.
I bet. The funny thing is with coaching and teams, one of the things that I see is that most coaching companies don't want to teach you everything because they think if they teach you everything, you leave. It's the same thing with a lot of teams. They feel like if they teach you everything, that you leave. And the problem is if you don't teach them everything, guess what they do? They leave. Because you have to be able to show them ways to grow. When you say to a coach, hey, what database do you use? What are your systems? Can you show me so I can just copy what you already do so I don't have to reinvent the wheel? A lot of coaching companies will say you got to figure that out on your own. And it's one of the biggest problems you have in real estate is that a lot of people want to teach you part of it, but they don't want to teach you all of it. And the thing is that if you stop teaching value to your people will leave for someone that will. And I think it's just one of the biggest problems with teams is showing people that if you do X, Y, and Z, like this is the growth that you have. Because anytime someone feels like they stop growing in their mind, they start dying. And that's when people leave. And it's just one of the things as you scale out a team is you have to create a culture where number one, people support each other. And number two, that they see that the better they get, there's more opportunity within the company. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And that is such a key point that you say, because that's why, I chose my upline, partner in North Carolina, Tina Call, because her vision was so vast that I said, okay, this is, if I'm going to be under anybody or, within any type of organization, and so I think that's where a lot of team leaders fail, is that your vision is not large enough to house the ambitious, aggressive individuals that would be happy. I was happy to stay. I didn't want it. I mean, frankly, if I had a great team set up, I would never leave. I would never leave because if I could grow on my own and do really, like one of my former coaches said, I'm a great employee. I'm a fantastic executive type of mindset guy. I follow a plan, but I can have nuances on it. But really, I also learned a lot, Mike, from my music days. So I was a professional musician in college and also like my early 20s, like 21, 22, and then I kind of got out of that.
Would you play or sing?
I was a guitar player, so I got paid to play. I was like legitimate professional. So I toured the country. I was signed to a label. Like I was in like one of those emo bands back in the day. It was kind of like, I'm a younger, it was just like the mid 2000s, you know what I mean? So, but that experience taught me being in a band, like there's so many personalities, there's so much, you have to keep on creating all the time. There's just all this, so much, you have to kind of distinguish what's working. But the one thing that I looked up at my heroes back then, which was like the guitar player of like Rage Against the Machine or like System of a Down, these people. And I was like, what did they do to get so good at the guitar? What are the things that they did? Kind of taking a different approach here, but it was like first off, they all had a cohesive unit, that they were all in growth mindset. These are musicians that at the top level, they all have growth mindsets. I mean, and they practice their fucking asses off, excuse my French, for literally hours on end. I mean, I remember one day, Mike, I practiced the guitar in my dorm room in Lynn University in Boca Raton, Florida, okay? I practiced the guitar for no joke, 8 hours straight. I didn't eat lunch. I forgot to eat lunch. I mean, I was just like, I was so committed to the skill building and the skill of doing like all the shredding that like I just wanted to be like those guys that I like emulated. And sure enough, that skill created for me a way to and like I was able to go into a band, and I've always been a team player. I just love being around teams. I just love the whole group settings, and it's because to me I feel like you always go further with a team than you do ever as an individual.
Oh, 100%. 100%. So how did you go from a band singer to a real estate agent?
Yeah, it's like a wedding band singer, right? No, we was it was we went basically it was I was introduced by one of my father's well my uncle. I mean he's not by blood, but my uncle, really good friends with my father. We called him Uncle Tim, and I was during the summers in between college when I wasn't touring, I would go on the mercantile exchange in the city and get into and was trading running tickets. I was like 17, like 19, 20 years old, and I at that time before computers took over to the trading desks, those like yelling those like the floor traders, and they would like run tickets back and forth, and they would like do trades and everything. Um, and I would help him during the summer, so I got exposed to the finance world. And so being a stockbroker was another thing I would like looked up to. I was like, damn, this is great too. So I decided though I wanted to have a family at some point. I knew being in music, like I didn't really see a lot of opportunity. I didn't want to really move to LA and do that whole thing. So I said, you know what, this has been great, but I'm going to go ahead and transition out and go into Wall Street. And I did that for a little bit. I made 700 dials cold calling in a boiler room for at least about a year and a half straight. I
Wow.
loved every minute of it because I mean, Mike, you're basically, you remind me a lot of those days of like the guy that I had that was my mentor back then on Wall Street, because I'll be honest, it was such an exposure to like the work ethic that you need to be successful in that business, and like working hard. It was just like that's what you do. And
Right.
I'm shocked to see so many agents today that like when they see me working as hard as we do, let's say, or I do, they're like, "Why do you've already been on the phones prospecting for how long?" And they look at us like we're some like it's just like it's like a weird thing for them. And I'm like, dude, like that's just par for the course if you want to be successful at anything. So, I don't really. So anyway, it's that's how I transitioned from music to the Wall Street career, and then the world blew up. You remember 2008, 9, and 10, the complete world blew up, and I had, no job. I was jobless. They fired me from Wall Street, and my mom said, "Look, go." My mom's an agent, over here in New Jersey, and she's like, "Listen, go talk to one of my friends in Hoboken, New Jersey, here, because that's where I was living at the time, and just see if you have your license. Just go and interview just there, just to get a job for now." And I've been in real estate ever since.
Wow. So let me ask you something. What were the hardest challenges you had the first 1 to 2 years in the business?
Um, Well, the first challenge is 1 to 2 years in the business was I didn't really take it that seriously, because like I said, I just wasn't I didn't think this was like a long-term thing. It was like I didn't know, there were guys like you making millions a year. Like there was no exposure to that at all, even in the company that I was in. But I would say the best thing my first, I guess you would call him a team leader, ever did for me was provide me a DVD of Mike Ferry of the 2000, and I think 7 or 8 Superstar Retreat. I mean, that's how far back it went. This was then already 2011, 12-ish kind of time frame, and that's when I was like, oh, there are people like me out there. That's great. Let's go ahead and and really and kind of take this seriously. But the real decision that kept me and continuing to go, and that's when the hardest thing for me was like in real estate was not seeing a paycheck. I mean, not getting a result for like a year. I think I made like 13,000 my first year. It was like one sale and a couple rentals. I mean,
Wow.
that was disheartening when my friends were accountants and lawyers and teachers, and they're all making 50, 75, 100,000 a year their first couple years coming out of college. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? You
What
know?
made you stay? I mean, most people would have quit.
Because I was, you could call it luck, you could call it whatever it is. I closed my first $1 million sale at 26 years old. It was 1.4. It was in 2011, and I was sitting. Remember floor time?
Mhm.
Yeah. So there was floor time, which is anyone that doesn't know, you got called. You would just sit at the front desk of the corporate office, and you would get sign calls that you would just go and whatever you would handle. So I took them out one day. This buyer and this husband and wife took them out one day. They were high executives in some Wall Street firm, and I ended up showing. It was one house that they ended up picking, or a condo rather, here in Hoboken, and it was for 1.4 that I negotiated, and the commission check came back, and it was like close to 20,000 for me in my pocket at 26 years old. I never made anything in one deal like that in my life. I said, okay, I can either take this money and buy back my seat on the trading desk that I wanted to get into, or I can see where this goes and follow my effort. And so I decided from there to be like, you know what, that was enough to carry me mentally to keep on going into the business and actually taking it more seriously.
So what would be three things you would tell someone right now that is having trouble in real estate that they need to do to be more successful?
You need to, for number one, 100% get a coach. I don't care who. I mean, Mike, right now, like you're providing coaching services. You got to get some training. Not even training. Like training is one thing, but you need you need someone to talk to you and get your mindset right. Because looking back at my career, had I gotten coaching, I only started coaching 7 years ago. That's the crazy
Wow.
part, right? Had I been coaching longer, I would have been probably in a much different place right now, most likely. So, um, the first thing is to get a coach. Second thing is you need massive amounts of exposure. I can't even, I mean, Mike, you know this. You need so much exposure, bombardment of positive just stuff, whether it be Tony Robbins, I mean, mindset stuff. I mean, just like anything on YouTube and just information. Your mindset is probably in the toilet, and that's probably why you're not seeing it at the highest level. And number three is working on your skill development and knowing what to say and how to say it. I mean, I remember reciting my scripts countless times in just to myself when I didn't have a role play partner. Actually, if you don't mind, I'll give you another quick story around skill development. Okay, so my wife and I, we were just recently married. This is about almost 10 years ago, and it was right when I started coaching. He said you got to follow these scripts and dialogues, and you got to like figure this out. And so I ended up trying to practice the FISBOs. I was petrified of calling FISBOs, by the way. Petrified. Like I just could not, like it was so like expired. I could get, all right, they already hired an agent. I can really get around that. But FISBOs, I was like, you're trying to do it on your own? Maybe you don't even like us. Like it's so weird, right? But I was petrified of calling FISBOs. So I started practicing with my wife. So we went for a walk one night, and we're going for a walk, and I started saying, like, you be the seller, I'm gonna be the agent. I gotta practice my scripts on this FISBO thing, and just answer however you want to answer it. And I think I said the first two lines of the script. She stopped me and she said, honey, I just married you. Is this how we're gonna pay our bills, by you sounding like that? And I was like, wait, it was that bad? She's like, it was horrible, honey. I'm sorry, but you gotta. And she's from Boston, so give her credit. That Eastern kind of mentality was like, I was so happy for that, for like that truth.
Honesty
And
will set you free.
100%. And she was like, you either have to get better or you got to find another job. And from there, I was like, all right, I'm all in. I wrote out the script for 30 days, each script for a year, 2 years straight. I had high accountability partners. Also, too, the amount of people that have such a lack of accountability. If you have any goals around anything, you want to do 50 deals, 75, 100 deals plus a year, you need to have, or even health goals. You want to get jacked, you want to have a six pack, whatever. I don't care what it is. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but I feel like there's a direct correlation to the amount of the high level accountability someone has. So, as an example, I had other agents that I met through the network that we were coaching with, and I said, "Look, I'm going to send you a check," and I sent checks to $1,000, $2,000, seven, whatever. I said, "You cash it if I don't text you a photo of my script that I'm writing out for today, 7 days a week." So I think people also underestimate the lack of intensity it takes for you to be successful. People are so passive, dude. Like I see agents right now, like I'm just like, where is that umph? Like it's just like where the fuck are you? Hello? Or it's like, is anyone fucking there? It's crazy to me. So anyway, man, like that's the kind of four things, I guess, but those are the things I would say.
I think people underestimate energy, enthusiasm, being playfully confident. That is what sells. That is what people want. I see so many people that I coach, they come to my office. I've got 3 people at my office now shadowing me. And it's just funny because, I watch them and they go through the motions. And today we were really working at being energetic, prospecting with a smile, actually pretending like we care, because it's so funny that, if someone you loved was on a bridge ready to jump, you would handle every single objection to make sure that they get off the bridge.
Yep.
And come. No matter what they said, you would find a rebuttal to tell them. It doesn't matter if it's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then we get on the phone with the customer and they give us 2 objections and we're like, all right, go ahead and jump. Goodbye. Why do people, and why do people fight more for people they love than for the people that they talk to every single day?
I 100% agree. It's funny when you said that the first time, I taped that and I sent it to my team. I said, this is what I've been telling you guys for the last year and a half. Like this is what it is. This is the crux of it, is that the greatest form of showing love in our business to our customers and to our clients, our prospects, is to not beat. I mean, how many listings, Mike, would you say? As far as I'm concerned, I know this has recently happened for me too. I took 5 listings in the last week, right? Okay. In those 5 listings that I've taken, okay, 4 out of the 5 told me no, I don't want to do anything right away. And it's like everyone that backs down from that first no, and you're like, okay, have a nice day. Yeah, you're not showing love, man. Like it's just you got to point and be like, no. Listen, who did you say you're gonna interview? Well, I'm sure they all want to do a great job, but let me ask you a question. You probably want a second opinion because you said Redfin. Oh, we got to meet now. No, I'm not. You can't do that. I'm sorry, you just can't do that. So you know what I mean? Like I don't even care. I just close now, and I'm just like, so that's something that you helped with, and Steve Powers and others have really helped me with that because I'm very amiable, personality, but that closing ability, like, dude, I'm booking massive amounts of appointments just because. Dude, I don't know, man. Like people just don't fight. There's no more fight in them. I don't know what it is.
I think, a lot of people look at amiables as being soft, caring, loving, but the truth is that if you love someone, what will you do for them?
Yeah, you do anything, of course.
And you see, that's where amiables fall short. If you really love someone, why would you get off the phone with them after 2 no's? If you really love someone, you stay on the phone until they jump or they hang up. That's one of the things for me when I'm talking to someone is I don't give up. I care enough about that customer that no matter what they say, I'm willing to stay on the phone. I either set the appointment or I get hung up on, and like, I'm okay either way. How are you in terms as an amiable of being able to push back where you feel uncomfortable?
Well, I think also, yeah, that's a great question. It's because I have a mantra, let's put it this way, that I say to myself every single morning when I wake up as an affirmation. And it's a pretty, I'm not going to say the whole thing now, but one of the lines in there is I out care the competition.
Absolutely.
And because, I really believe that, and I really do. And it's so funny that agents come up to me all the time asking questions about advice and stuff. And I say to myself, you don't care enough. You just don't care enough to sit there on the phone long enough. And I'm happy to send anyone one of my calls. I send to my downline and my team once a week an expired or FISBO or past client call that I booked an appointment with. And I do that. I'm happy to share anyone, to anyone that asks me. And you could hear like what I'm doing, but that's what it is, man. Like I genuinely had to affirm that in my brain that I care so much for their well-being that the only way to serve the clients at the highest possible integrity and value and give them value is to not let them go, because I know they're going to be in the best hands with me. Now, call that arrogant or whatever, but it's not really, because I just twist it, to make it show that it's It's always serving them. I'm always thinking that is, and something that what I've always done that seems to, and I've been consistent for the last 5 years. I do about anywhere from like 50 to 75 deals sales, but we do like 100 rentals. So a lot of the rentals they turn into rentals. I would it's like, but there's like a crux of it. So when you look at it though, half of my business every single year, half, it's like clockwork, is past clients in Sphere. So I mean, I'm grateful in that way for that. But I genuinely always, like, once a month I'm thinking, what can we do to increase the customer service? What can we do to enhance this experience with working with the Dean Clark group? What do they need from me, from my partner Teddy, or the agents on the team? And so that's how I look at it, man.
Well, speaking of past clients and centers of influence, what do you do consistently to maintain your database and to obviously grow your referrals? Because I think database, past clients is probably the one area that 99% of productive real estate agents fail at. In real estate, you either find people that go by referral only, or you have people that just hunt. You don't really find a lot of people that are able to do both. So what do you do in your business consistently to be able to grow that business?
Well, I think the first thing is you have to do both. There's no doubt, to grow anything. I mean, you have to hunt and you have to work your both. What has grown the database right now? I believe I have right now approximately 700 or so. I deleted a lot, but I mean, I have about 700 quality database members. My conversion rate's always been between 7 to 10%, let's say year over year. But what I think has worked really well is that I'm calling every 3 months like clockwork, or every 2 months. That's number one. You're hearing from me. Okay, number one. Number two, I'm sending 2 emails a month with valuable information around the market. And I'm also physically mailing them a direct mail piece, giving them a recipe or something, like, kind of cheesy, but my wife said she liked it. So I was like, I'm going to keep doing it.
Right.
But it's all those, it's all about, Mike, and this, frequency and familiarity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I need to be so that's why you're blowing up on social media. And people on social media now, we have this like what's called parasocial relationship, I guess, with these people that, with other agents, because we're so frequent. There's so much frequency happening with my database that whether it be a call, an email, so they reach out like all the time because I'm always around. But like I had a woman, give you another story. I had a woman who was didn't pick up the phone. I called her every 3 months like clockwork for 5 years straight. She never picked up the phone. And I said to one of my former coaches in MFO at the time, I said, should I just delete these people that don't pick up after 2-3 years? She's like, never. Don't delete them. If it's free, it doesn't matter.
Right.
You sold them a property or whatever, And sure, thank God I listened, because in year 6, she's like, Dean, I've been getting all your valuable voicemail messages for years now. And I want to say I appreciate that. And if there's anyone I was going to give my listing to when I was going to sell it, it was going to be you regardless. I just knew. I didn't even have to interview for the job, Mike. I just got it because I had all that built up trust that I built and value that I gave her on those voicemails about the market, anything. I mean, it was like a podcast within like a minute clip, basically. That was, so that was a game changer to understand that it's all about data. Like, you need more and more people that you're just loving on, and you focus on the right things, obviously, past clients, Sphere, agent referrals, or whatever. But yeah.
Yeah, I think so many people, they look at a database, but it's nothing more than a base where they park their information. They don't actually ever use it. I know one of the things that really transformed our business is that, I started taking anybody that gave me a referral and I called them every 30 days, or I sent them a text the next 30 days. Anybody that was a raving fan, I would call 60 days and then send a text the next 60 days. Everyone else in my database was every 90 days. And then anybody that moved out of state, I did every 180 days. But, that was probably the biggest weakness for Mike Putnam up to the first 20 years, is I just never paid attention. From what I heard with almost all of my coaches coming up was, get a deal, give it to my assistant, and go find another one. I would list a house, give it to my assistant. She would talk to them. I would get an offer. I would present it over the phone, and then she would show up at settlement. So a lot of these people, like, I would actually see them at events, and I didn't know who the hell they were And, you can't scale a business like that. So how were you able to develop that skill during your beginning years? Because that was something that I just never, ever learned early and really even later in my career.
The skill, you mean the skill to like call your database?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because, there's not a lot of Mike Ferry people that go through the process that are really, really, really good. I mean, Lucy Ham was one of the people when I was coming up that probably was the best at doing that. But if you talk to a sample of a lot of MFO agents, there just isn't a lot of people that kill it at database because we're taught to hunt.
Yeah, right. I mean, and that was me too. I just adopted it really early. I just said I have to. I'm gonna have to do it. Mike Ferry. That's the funny part is like everyone thinks that like Mike Ferry used to be all about just hunting, and cold calling all the time. But that system that he had about around the database was the system that I still employ today, and it was around like and I wasn't getting anywhere the first year with the database either because I never called them. I never did. So like just imagine that they didn't hear from you for the last 5 years, let's say, or 4 or 5 or 3 years. Now all of a sudden I'm calling everybody. You'd be surprised. And like, but dude, how many come list me calls do you get? Like, so for me to, I guess the answer to your question is like, I just realized the return on the time investment to call the database was through the roof. But I had a problem though, Mike. I will tell you this. I didn't take it seriously, meaning that it was like, oh, I already work with them, so there's no excitement. There's no dopamine rush to hunt. They're just there, and I'm gonna call them. So I was addicted to that dopamine expired rush. I was addicted to that FISBO rush. But the problem is these addictions are weighing you down to work your database effectively, because if you really get the real rush to me are those come list me calls. When you're telling me I don't have to do a presentation, I can just send you the docs and then we're good to go. Are you serious? And I'm gonna make 30 grand, 20 grand, 15 grand on a commission, dude. To me, there's nothing better than that.
I think the biggest problem with database is that a lot of people think the value is just in the clients. The real true value of a database is that everybody in there knows 5 to 7 people every year that are going to buy or sell. I think that was the one thing that I was never able to like comprehend, because like I just would sell a house to someone and it's like they're not going to do anything, so like why call them? You know what I mean? So like, not realizing that that person knows 5 to 7 people. It's just like, the hardest part of my business, it was 4 years ago when I finally I went to a Joe Stump and I met with him in person at this event, and I went back and I had 2,400 people in my database. And I looked up everyone in my database and realized that over the last 18 months, 220 people had bought or sold a house. And it was like almost $8 million in lost commissions if I didn't make any cold calls and I had just called my database. I mean, I remember going through that process and not going to work for a couple of days because I was so angry at myself, because like here I am making $2 million a year thinking that I'm good at hunting expireds and for sale by owners. And meanwhile, I'm losing $8 million by not calling my database. It was one of the most eye-opening moments in my career, because it made me start to see that like there's a better way. And the hardest part for me was going back and being like, hi, this is Mike Putnam. I was going through my database and I realized that I have not called you in 10 years. And I just wanted to call and personally apologize. I hope you can forgive me. I'm not sure how it happened, but it did. I want to remind you, if you need anything, I'm here for you. Again, I apologize. I'm going to stay connected with you. If you need anything, let me know. And of course, they would never call me back. And then 90 days later, I would be like, hi, Dean, it's your real estate agent. I know I didn't call you for 10 years, but it's been a few months. I wanted to check in. And as promised, I'm going to stay in contact if you need anything. I mean, that went on for almost 18 months before I finally started like getting a return where like there was a guy called me and he's like, Mike, it's Norman. And he's like, I've been getting your messages and, you left me 1.5 years ago and you didn't call me in 10 years. And, I didn't call you. So I guess we're even. And, I got the listing and it was just like, it was weird. His wife had died and we're catching up. And then like 2.5 weeks later, another person called me and I hadn't talked to them in 7 years. And they said, could I meet him at the house? And I get there and there's French toast and we're eating and he's asking me about his house. And then at the end, he's like, can I just sign? And I'm like, here you go. Then I'm like, do you need anything else from me? And they're like, yeah, here's some cheesecake. And I'm like, why have I been scared of this my whole career? I literally got a listing at 975,000 eating French toast, and I walked out with some cheesecake. And it's just funny. I mean, even yesterday, I got a guy that I had sold 4 years ago. I literally didn't call him for the first 2 years, and then 18 months ago, as I said, I started calling him, and he just called me for the first time. His mom is selling their property here in 2 weeks and is going to buy something, and it's transformed my business. And so it's so funny because if you ask most people about my coaching, they would say, Mike is going to try to make you like him. Mike is trying to make you the opposite of him. Mike will teach you the skills because that's the easy part, but he wants to teach you that in 3 or 4 years, you can have a referral business where you can make 5, 6, 800 grand just from calling your database, because people don't realize that, like, people know 5 to 7 people. And if you can get one person to give you a referral and you can incentivize them, I promise they'll give you 2, 3, 4 referrals a year. I mean, I actually got to speak to an agent that did 600 deals a year by referral. And the funny thing is about that person is that they had some people that were giving them 7, 8, 9 deals a year. When someone came in and gave them a referral, they would send out a $250 gift card right away, regardless if that referral came through. And so it's like I started adopting that. And it's funny that when you start incentivizing other people to help you, they do it more often.
Yes, 110%. It is, I think, one of the most unutilized lead sources that we have is our database. And that idea, like, obviously is great. I mean, but there's so many different ways to do it. But like, yeah, man, I mean, I don't know. I think that it without the database, I wouldn't have a business right now. So put it that way.
Absolutely. Let me ask you, I mean, how big do you want to grow your team? What's your team look like 5 years from now?
Well, I don't really. Okay, so the way I'm looking at it now, if you asked me that question 2 years ago when I started, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be 50 agents and just go crazy and do whatever it takes and do $1 billion in sales, whatever, right? But now I realized a lot of things, and when you peel back the layer of how a lot of teams operate and their net profit margins, I just realized, you know what? I'm good to be a Navy SEAL, and frankly, I enjoy selling real estate. I still enjoy it. I still got a lot of room to grow, in my opinion. And frankly, for me, I know the formula to make $1 million a year plus. At least for me, I figured out a way to do that without having almost any team at all outside of like employees, let's say. And the formula to me that it's always worked, which I'm already seeing the benefits of, that I'm employing again, which I did in 2020, 21, and 22, is an ISA, assistant, marketing, basically the same one, and a showing agent. 3 people. And that right there, with the skill set that, let's say, I have, working the database effectively and working all the other sources, you're pulling in 7 figures a year. I mean, unless of course you're not in like you're like in a some guy, who knows, like West Virginia market or something like that. But other than that, that to me has worked, and I'm already seeing the benefits of that. And I was looking at my numbers this morning actually, and seeing about $250,000 pending is not bad. And I'm very, for me, that's a big deal. For like being personal, for a personal production business. So how big I want to go, it just, to me, it's about reaching financial goals, and also I want to keep a Navy SEAL team. So I don't really have an agent count anymore. I love being a mentor though, and I love being that to other people. So, but like for you are, you're a coach now, right? So it's different. For me, having someone on my calendar to coach them up from where they are, I mean, hey man, more power to you. That sounds great. But if you need, but you can get me for questions anytime. But for me to be like, you don't want to make a call today, like, I'm sorry, dude. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, this is just what it is. So, I'm gonna build my as far as the downline within my own company with EXP a lot bigger. That's gonna be in the thousands at some point in the next few years, because that to me is another opportunity that I see that a lot of agents can have as like a retirement plan, and also and that's where I can give the most value nationwide, as opposed to just my own team being here and also having like my time back. So that's where I'm going to grow it. But I'm going to keep my local team tight, do really good business, and and then start investing in like a pretty big way.
I think that's great. I think, so many people think that having a huge team is the way to go and not realizing that, most teams, because of how they're structured, they don't make any money. I was on a podcast last year and I was talking to this guy and he's like the Midwest. He sold like 658 houses the previous year. And, he was telling us he's got like 20 assistants. He does advertising. He's on TV, radio. And we got off the call and I was just like, can I ask you a personal question? And if you don't want to answer, you don't have to. How much do you actually net? Because I think he had done like $480 million in revenue the previous year. And I'll never forget. He said, well, it's not a fair question, but I make right around 275,000. And I was like, wow. Because I'm thinking like that guy is spending almost that much or more in marketing per month with assistants and just bills. He's like 2 bad months away from being completely out of the business. And if you make 638 sales and you make 275,000, the risk reward, it's not there.
I think also, it's funny that you say that. I want to share something on that point too. I really, after my third baby is when I really started to have the team aspect of like the idea come up to like, I really wanted to build it, get my time back. That's really why I wanted to do it. I'm like, I have 3 kids now. I was like not sleeping, so it was like all these different things where, you have kids and it's like, I was in a moment where I was like, I need my time back. I can't, how am I going to spend time with my kids without having a team? So I equated, right? But then I realized, I'm like, wait a minute. I've had a great life up until this point. And yet I'm gonna be, and I see these agents like you said, their netting is like nothing. I'm sorry about you, but or to anyone else out there, I'm having a big life. You know what I mean? I love having a big life. I love extravagant vacations. I like big investments. This is me. I just like that. But you can get your time back with taking 10 listings a month.
Absolutely.
And frankly, you get. Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we're taking 8 to 10 listings a month, you actually have more time that you can do other things than you can with having, let's say, 50 agents and you're just trying to get them to do a deal. I know teams that have 50 agents, but really there's one unicorn doing like 75 deals on that team. And then like there's like maybe 12 doing 1 deal a month. And I'm like, is that really like the kind of team that I want? And so, I think originally the idea was, if anyone's listening to this right now, is that the idea is that I want to get my time back. But guess what? There's different ways to get your time back and still make a lot of money. And I think that's been the biggest change for me with understanding the vision of a team. And that's why I'm going a different direction. And, also building up like the Phone Warriors right now community. There's so much value that people are getting from this community that I feel like it's that's really like another team or database, let's say, that I love working because so many agents are getting value from the Zoom that we're doing on that and the Facebook community and having the podcast on that too. So
well, that was my next lead-in question. Tell everyone about Phone Warriors, because I think it's a unique group. It's amazing to see what you built, because it truly is a community. It's a brother sisterhood. I watch people on there prospecting, and I think there's not a lot of resources that agents have where they can go to and just find people of like kind. So I guess tell people how you came up with that concept and I guess what the benefits are. Tell them a little bit about that in case they don't.
Absolutely. So Phone Warriors, right? I think the name is pretty self-explanatory, but Phone Warriors is a prospecting group of agents that prospect on a Zoom. It's a live free Zoom you can log into, and you can hear agents all around the country, from California, Texas, Florida, anywhere, New Jersey, New York, wherever, that are prospecting at a high level. And you can actually hear what they're saying that is getting appointments, right? And some agents need work, some are seasoned professionals. I'm on there still, and you're hearing how I'm closing, business or whatever, and other professionals. And the beautiful thing is that we have anywhere from like 15 to 25 agents 6 days a week, usually on the Zoom.
Oh wow!
That are actually prospecting now consistently. And it's funny. I've noticed a trend, Mike. There are consistent members that are on there, and those are the ones that are doing the most business. And the ones that come in, they kind of look at it like, oh, this thing seems like nice, and then they process for a couple of days, and then they're out, and then they just leave, and I don't see them anymore. And I'm like, what happened? And they're like, oh, prospecting is really not for me. I don't really like it. I'm like, what, really? But and then you ask them how much business that they're doing. It's not a lot, but it's like that's what the Phone Warriors is. It is really a community of agents that want to be supported in a positive way. And as a leader of the group, I've always wanted this, man. Going back to like my former first team leader that I had when I was an agent on that team, and being in the music business and having that cohesiveness of a group and a band and everything, is that you have people are not encouraged enough. I'm not sitting here like, I wanted to build something where you didn't have to sign up for anything right away. You didn't have to go to a physical event. You could just start getting value instantly. Yeah. So how do we bring what we've learned to the public in a way that you can get value instantly? Because that's how they're buying. You're going on Amazon, you're buying something right away. Okay. Absolutely. I don't want to have to wait 3 months for a Mike Ferry event or some other event to happen for me to just learn what is actually working today. Where can I find that? And that's how really the idea came about. And I was like, that's what I wanted. I just built what I wanted years ago. And now people have it.
Yeah, I think that's so cool. I mean, just to watch how much you built that and to what you're putting into it. So where do you want to take Phone Warriors? What does that look like over the next few years?
Yeah, the vision, it's a good question. I mean, the vision of Phone Warriors, it's constantly getting exposure. I think agents need to hear other agents prospect at a high level. And that's also why we do the podcast too. If you subscribe to the Phone Warriors podcast, you just type it in Google, the Phone Warriors podcast. It will come right up now, because now we have people like yourself getting massive amounts of views and everything. But it's great because I want to take this to a place where we're doing events and we have thousands of people, agents that are aspiring to do business at a high level and get some exposure that they would have never gotten on their own, from like anywhere else. And unfortunately, because there's so many coaches, there's so much training, there's so much distractions out there, there's not a hub of information that agents can go to, like brokers. Like right now, like your broker is not giving you like a Mike Putnam tape anymore. Those days are gone. So like all the stories we heard of like these top MFO agents coming up that like got handed a tape or they got handed information, you're never going to see that again. So where do we go to disseminate the right information? And so I want to take this to basically be the network and be like the Netflix of the real estate space, to click in on different channels, basically say like, okay, we have this time, this day to be, okay, we have Putnam time right now. Here's an hour of Putnam for this week that you can tune into. And if you subscribe to it and you pay a small little fee, hey, like, and that to me is really the vision that I see for Phone Warriors being hopefully one of the best prospecting communities that exist.
Yeah, I think it's great what you're building. I think, you mentioned something about distractions. I think that's one of the biggest problems I see in real estate is, who do you follow? If you listen to some of these real estate coaches, they're telling people to collect emails on their role plays instead of trying to set appointments. You have some agents that are coaches, I'm not going to mention any name to protect the guilty, that are prospecting, once or twice a month online, and they're setting up appointments. And then you go to their track record and like, they're not selling any houses. And it's like, are they calling their mom, their dad, their uncle, their brothers? It's like, are they calling people in the Philippines? I mean, who are these appointments that they're setting up? And it's just, there's so much, I feel like, disinformation in real estate where people are teaching concepts instead of actually like teaching people like what to actually.
Going back to your first example, Mike, and I know we talked about this right in the past. Okay. So by the way, I'm still trying to figure that out, by the way. I'm going to try to get you guys together. But so I looked at that model and I saw he was blowing up on YouTube, and I saw what was going on there, right? And I said to myself, okay, he made his first million. It took him 14 years to do that with his approach. I made my first million with an MFO system, technically, I guess, within the first 3.5 years of being within that ecosystem. So I said to myself, okay, if this is, I'm about efficiency, okay? And I'm sorry, I'm not gonna wait for my email campaign to work to get me come list me calls and everything. I'm gonna go out there in a very polite, aggressive way, what I call progressive, and really reach out. So distractions, I mean, dude, I think we have a serious lack of self-awareness around fundamentals of sales.
Oh, 150.
Dude, like, let's just be honest. You're like, that's why I'm saying, like, you see like the Instagram people and YouTube people do all your business on YouTube, do your business via email. It's like, okay, you get the lead, now what? Now what? Okay, you could say, well, they like you so much from YouTube that they're gonna do business with you regardless if they just trust you 100%. Yeah, that will buy you a couple sessions with them of their time to try to sell them into a property. But at some point, if you don't execute, you're gonna get to a level of like you're gonna not. It's not gonna go over well. You know, like as an example, how can I take? I got a lead. I was away for like the last week, right? I was on a family vacation, and I got a lead on Saturday. I just forgot to call this lead. I know, boo boo on me, right? It was $1 million sale in Jersey City. Okay, right. So I forgot to call it because I just was away and I just didn't see it. But it was an online lead, so I'm like, oh, how good are they? So I started making these excuses in my head about calling them, right? But I said, okay, I was back on Monday. This is just past Monday. I called the lead. And he literally said, he's like, well, I already met like 3 other agents. I don't really need to meet with anybody else. I said, that's fine. Just tell me a little bit about your goals and everything, and we can just kind of see if it makes sense for us to meet it. And he was like, well, okay. And we went into the conversation, right? Because again, skills. Like I just kept going with the conversation. And so I set an appointment for the next day. Okay. Met with him and his wife the next day. He then calls me yesterday when I was at my team event, and he goes, I don't know how you did it, but you convinced my wife to list with you. I said, what do you mean, how? He goes, well, you had such a short period of time to get prepared for this big deal that we have, and you were the only one that came more prepared than everybody else. And you had thorough comparables. Everything was very thorough, and we really appreciate that. We want to list with you. And I said, great. So I said to myself, is that duplicatable? And 100% it is. So how can I go from not, like I was just by accident, didn't reach out to that lead, but then all of a sudden I call him one time. I don't know this guy. He wasn't a database. On Monday, I book an appointment on Tuesday. He signs with me on day 2 or day 3.
Yeah.
So that skill set is something that is just not readily available and that's why people are distracted, Mike. Honestly, I don't like. You're listening to so many different ways now to get business, but one thing that I always held true, and one of my mentors always told me this. There are 50 ways to find one deal, but if you're finding 50, what is one way to find 50 deals? There is one way. It's using the phone. That's what I've learned. There's different sources to call. But like you're trying to figure out all these different mechanisms, direct mail and Zillow and everything else. You're so distracted. But like, what's one way to get you to like 50 plus? And that's where I think every agent needs to just get focused. But they have the lack of self-awareness, dude, around like just fundamentals of sales. It's like, look, you lead generate, you lead follow up, you negotiate, you go on appointments, and then when you close that deal, now the new skill is be in touch with them.
I think a lot of people don't realize, the end of the transaction is honestly the beginning of the relationship.
100%.
So many people forget that. It's funny that, one of the new coaching clients I had, they were telling me that their coach was telling them that after 30 days, you had 30 days or you had to rip it up. So if someone said they wanted to do it in 40 days, that was not a lead. And it's just insanity because 90% of all of our business comes from long-term lead follow-up. People forget that. It's like everybody wants to make the first contact. I'm going to make 50 contacts a day, 70 contacts a day. But the question is, what do you do with it? There's not been one person that I've coached that when we look at their systems, their lead follow-up is actually efficient. I go through their Mojo and their follow-up balls and all their CRMs, and I literally find hundreds and thousands of people that are in their system that they're never even communicating with because I don't think that people readily teach people how to effectively lead follow-up. But there's probably one thing outside of just learning how to communicate. It's actually how to follow up on leads consistently, effectively. I remember when we were talking, you started putting all this stuff into a folder, and you were able to double and triple dial. And it's like now you're able to get a hold of 2 to 3 times as many leads. I remember one day you called it like it works.
Yeah, it's you helped me with that 100%. I mean, and so I really appreciated that. I mean, that cleanup of even my own system, and I thought I was doing okay, but then I realized like how bad it actually was, and you got it like all like wrapped up. That was a beautiful thing, man. So I think from anyone listening to you and like that it's not just like with you, you're fixing the system that is broken for a lot of agents out there, which is why your coaching is working, and also. And on that point about people throwing away leads and everything or not paying attention to them, I mean, I think it's pretty logical to me, right? When you had a normal market prior to COVID, prior to all the stuff going on right now, 5+ years ago, that might have worked because it was it was a balanced market. We have been in such a severe shortage of inventory that if you're focused on listings and you don't have future lead follow-up, dude, you're dead. You got nothing going on because not everyone can or will want to sell right now because their interest rates are super low that they have on their mortgages or they have these different things. So I think that's such a key point that you said. And yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of that to unpack, but like it's really, and I think I'll leave the mic drop community with this, which is that look. If there's anything that I would say to anyone that came up to me for advice, if there's anything I would say outside of getting exposure, working on your skills, joining good communities, and just being like available is just show up to perform.
Absolutely.
I did an interview. Another story I'll give is like I did an interview to hire my ISA that I have now, a group interview, and there were 12 candidates that showed up. I had one guy show up like 15 minutes late. I kicked him out, and I said but like people, and we specifically in the Indeed ad, we said you need to have a business casual outfit. You need to be punctual. We just laid it out. If you follow the directions, you have the best chance of getting this job for this position to make close to 100,000 a year. And people were showing up late. They weren't dressed. I'm like, you're not even showing up to perform. Like, let alone your communication skills. We can work on all that shit. But I'm going to pay you a certain amount of money. You are looking for a job. I'm an employer and you're not showing up. I said, this is broke. Something is weird out there, dude. So please, if there's anything I would do, if I'm going to do 100 deals or 50 deals or 25 deals a year, whatever your goals are, what would that look like in your mind? Like, what does that look like to you? Would you show up late? And also, too, one thing I learned being on vacation last week, you know what a vacation really is? It's doing everything opposite that you would do in your normal life. That's all vacation is. You wake up later. You wake up whenever you want, right? You shower usually at night or whatever after the whole day is done. You know what I mean? Everything's the opposite. So I said to myself, stop acting like you're on vacation and start actually being in the driver's seat of the minute you start your day. Hopefully it's before 6 a.m. and you just get off and get going, dude.
So what does your morning schedule look like now? Because a lot of people want to know what's a good, successful agent's morning schedule look like.
Well, morning schedule is wake up no later than usually 5:30 in the morning, 5:15, 5:30. Okay. And I wake up immediately, go and start to go to the gym. I want to to the gym is downstairs for me. It's in my house, So I'm usually doing either lifting or doing something to, some sort of cardio, maybe some running. Depends on the day. I do that 5-6 days a week. It's just part of my, the thing. And after that, I review my goals for the day. I review like affirmations. I say things out loud. And then after that, I usually I spend some time with my kids, depending upon how much time I have. Usually between like that like 7 to 7:30 window before I leave to get to the office, because my office is now like about 15 minutes away only. So I do that in the morning, and then I'm usually on the phones no later than like 8 o'clock. you know. So like 7:55, 8 o'clock, I'm already calling, usually expire listings. Then we go to FISBOs, and I try to get through that. And then by 9 to 9:30, that's the time that like I have it in like my head to like start calling my database right away at that point. And then depending upon what I've accomplished so far on that day, I'll then continue to call right through 12. And then I usually from like 8 to 12 is like the hours that I just stick to make that work.
Perfect. So before we leave, tell me, what are two things that if you could go back to Dean on day one of real estate, you would want him to know?
Number one is you don't have all the answers. So start searching. And if I was a searcher sooner for the right answers, I would be a lot more further, but I wasn't. And now I learned to be a better searcher for information. That's number one. Number two is practice like your life depends on it, because it does.
Yep, it does.
If you don't practice the scripts and dialogues that are in front of you like your life depends on it, you're gonna lose, man. I mean, you're just gonna lose. Had I taken that seriously, obviously sooner, like I said, I mean, who knows where I would be right now, but I had to go through those moments in my career to really figure out what exactly I could do with myself. So those are the two things that I would do.
Well, if someone wanted to come work for you, they had referrals, how do they get a hold of you? And
Yep. Yeah, you could DM me on Instagram if you want to go on Instagram. It's at Dean Clark Group. You can follow us. Also, subscribe to the Phone Warriors podcast as well. That's on YouTube. And feel free to shoot me an email, dean@deanclarkgroup.com.
Well, Dean, it was great having you, and look forward to having you back another time.
Absolutely, man. Thank you.